Hello and welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, as always, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series I'll be speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out, crucially, how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. So today I'm joined by Maeve Monaghan, CEO of Now Group. I'm going to give everybody a little bit of background before we get stuck in, but Now Group is a Northern Ireland-wide social enterprise based in Belfast, supporting people with learning difficulties and autism into jobs with a future. They also run, manage and own Loaf Catering and Loaf Pottery and Coffee Shop, a social enterprise working with people with learning difficulties and autism. They also offer a range of solutions to businesses, including corporate catering, recruitment and supported employment, social impact measurement, and disability awareness customer service training. They team partner with organisations to provide a strategic way for you to have a positive impact on society through your supply chain. Now Group will work with businesses and individuals to communicate impact and demonstrate its value for your organisation. Maeve, I love Now Group and, I've worked with you over the years and I've watched you develop this organisation from the start. Let's find out a little bit about you, first of all, the woman behind it all. Did you start Now Group?
Well, I would have been one of the first staff, Sarah, that was employed. So if you think of Now Group in the very early days, it was set up by a group of parents and carers who were based in North and West Belfast, and they looked around and they thought when their sons and daughters were leaving daycare centres or schools, there was no real opportunities for them. So they set up a project supported by the Health Trust at that time to try to create opportunities, and I was one of the first staff recruited on that. So we're having our 21st birthday this year, so I've been there for 21 years, and I think, it's been a fantastic journey. But from the very early days, I would have been coming out of university, maybe worked for 2 years in different support roles. So this would have been a job where I came in at a certain level and have grown with the organisation. So I'm particularly proud of it for that reason.
So let's rewind again.
Okay.
Before Now Group, what were you doing?
Well, I'd really just graduated about 2 years before that with a degree in psychology. And it's quite difficult to know when you come out with that degree what you do next. But when people ask me why I've ended up in this role, I think what was very clear to me is I have always had a passion for social justice. Just that idea of what you could do to help people who aren't getting a fair deal. So I was always interested in that, and disability in that area interested me as well, because I had a number of family members with the different types of disabilities. So I had a background in psychology and interest in social justice, but really looking back, I was always interested in making money as well. So I would have been always quite entrepreneurial. And I tell a story about in the very early days where I used to gather everybody together in the housing estate that we lived in and say, right, come on, we'll get together and we'll make some money. And we used to get all our mum's handbags and their shoes, without the permission, I would add, and put them out on a table and sell them. So we had,
Did you?
Yeah, we had jumble sales. We used to hire out our roller boots. We had a soda stream, so we would have, made the drinks and sold them to our friends in the area. And there was that feeling of community and engagement, but also that idea of making money. And the interesting point on looking back was that I never kept the money for myself. So probably I wonder why that's happened, because I could have been in a different career journey.
You didn't sell your rollerblades, you only rented them out.
Yeah,
I
so
noticed that. You
that
sold
entrepreneurial thing was always there. So that idea of bringing people together, looking at how you generate income, and then we would have given it to charity. So we've been trying to help on the social justice bit. So coming out of a degree, I was looking for that kind of background, because in a careers advisory piece, there isn't a social enterprise strain. So I think we've created that in Now Group, and I think it's been a great fit.
And social enterprises, maybe 21 years ago, were there many around?
No, not really. There might have been some social firms or some sheltered employment programs. So there have been a lot of initiatives to try to help disabled people get into work. But that model, I suppose, was getting quite dated. And that idea of charities being not for profit and not being allowed to make profit. I think the interesting thing for me is I love making money. It's just what we do with it is different. So the money is generated by the social enterprise and goes back into the charitable purpose. So that has evolved over the time I've been with Now Group, and I think we've availed off it greatly.
And obviously huge benefits then, because you're sustainable. You're not constantly going out as maybe was portrayed in the media with the begging bowl and looking for funding.
I know, absolutely. And, I would say that funding's needed, and there's some amazing organisations who rely very heavily on fundraising and are finding it very difficult at this time, and they need supported. But that model isn't our model. So we would have about 50% of our income from contracts with government and funding projects for delivering certain pieces of work, but at least half of all of our income across Now Group would be trade-in. And I think that's the bit that I'm really keen to get across to businesses. Like, we want to be commercial. It's not the little projects that you deliver that are a nice thing to do. We're competing with the private sector as well and collaborating with them. And I think that's the bit that keeps this industry so exciting.
So I touched in the introduction there on the range of services that you offer, but perhaps you could delve a little deeper for us. So first of all, you support people with learning difficulties and autism into jobs.
Yeah, I think that's the mission. That is key to everything we do. And I've seen that grow over the last 21 years as well. So at the very beginning, we might have been supporting 30, 40 people. This year, we'll be supporting 2,000 people with learning difficulties and autism. So we've been focusing quite a lot on scale, but scale with quality. So we'll support anybody with any form of learning difficulty or autism. So that could be somebody with a reading and writing issue or communication difficulties, right through to people with very significant disabilities. And the interest in that is the model works for everybody if it's delivered in a high quality way. So our participants are our customers, and the focus is to deliver the best quality service to them, to partner with business to do that, and a focus on paid jobs in open employment. So we're not so keen on doing it within our own sites, although we do employ quite a few of our participants ourselves. We're an inclusive employer. The idea is for our participants to be at the heart of every business across Northern Ireland and wider afield.
That's amazing. You talked there because you've got all, a range of needs, I suppose, there, and different abilities, capabilities, and I love that our participants are our customers.
Absolutely.
So it's not the person that's eating the sandwich. No. It's not the you're serving them.
Yeah, I absolutely believe, we have a customer focus as well in relation to the people we're delivering services to. So our customers in our cafes and in a range of different businesses. But no, the reason why Now Group works so well, if you're going to push numbers and look at scale, you have to be very, very careful that you're still delivering an excellent service, because I think you do it once and you don't get that repeat business unless you do. And a lot of our work with the disabled community and their families is around word of mouth. We have a really good reputation for delivering. And I think, even on the jobs piece, we supported over 100 people last year into jobs. That will be 200 people into paid jobs this year. And off that, 83% are retained in their job after 6 months. And I think that figure stacks up with any private sector or recruitment business. So that requires good quality service to the employer and to the participant, the job seeker, for that to work.
This podcast is sponsored by Granite Legal Services, a niche business and immigration law practice located in the heart of Newry City. Granite Legal Services provides legal advice to both individuals and companies alike across a wide range of industries, from employment, commercial or corporate law matters to immigration law. Granite Legal Services focuses on providing legally sound, practical advice to its clients. To get in touch, visit www.granitelegalservices.co.uk or contact 028 3026 2200. It is incredible, Maeve, honestly. And when you look at those figures, because I was going to ask you there, how do you measure the success? But you've been doing that regularly. And does that encourage employers to come forward and be part of this?
It's a really interesting conversation, this, because, being with the organisation for over 20 years, the conversation has changed. So I do remember in the early days going to business and saying, go on, would you create a job? Would you give our participants a chance? And they did. That conversation has flipped now. Businesses are coming to us and saying, who have you got? We need people. and that conversation is a really interesting one. That's one of the reasons why we started to develop services for business, because I can talk to a business and say, where are you hurting? Where are your skill gaps? Because we have a really, really reliable, capable workforce. So we are a solution now to businesses who are finding it difficult to fill those skills gaps. So that conversation has completely flipped, and we deliver a range of academies, a catering academy, a retail academy, a warehousing one. We also have a digital academy, and that idea of being able to match, train a number of people in one go and match them into jobs has opened up so many opportunities for us to do business with business.
So you've completely transformed, or rather society has completely transformed and moved from maybe a box ticking exercise or a bit of tokenism to Eureka.
Yeah.
And how has that changed the organisation then?
Well, I am an absolute believer in the fact that for our society to work, business, the public sector and the third sector have to partner together. It is not about doing charitable things onto either one. It's a collaborative approach. And I think that has opened up so many opportunities for us now to talk to business about what they want to do. I don't think I really have spoken to many businesses who don't want to help in some way. People in general want to do good things. They're just not quite sure how to do it. Yeah. And then they have their day job. So the conversations with business come now from two lines. One, because businesses are starting to understand that they need to be more diverse and inclusive. So they're trying to think how they could do that. Another, on the other stream, is businesses can't get the people. Yeah. So they're having to look for new supply chain of people. And I think we can be the solution in both of those things, as long as the values align. For us, it's really important that when we place people in jobs, they're good jobs and they have a future. And that's one of the reasons why that's in our mission.
Well, it's really heartening to hear that the employers are actually coming to you and not with doubt in their mind or feeling that they're taking a risk here, because there you go, I'm bringing bias to this conversation. I would have thought that if you had to manage somebody with special needs, that you might have to make modifications, that you have to design rotas differently, and maybe that's just too much to deal with.
Well, you're right. There may be modifications. There may and there may not. I think one of the things I find with businesses is they are really keen to help, but you can already see in the back of their head they're thinking, oh my goodness, what's HR going to think? Is this a risk? What happens if it doesn't work? And they are really genuine concerns that have to be talked through. That's why it works. That is not a bad thing to have those concerns. It is our job to mitigate against that, and also to raise, open people's minds and raise awareness of the capabilities that our participants have, and I think it's like a matching. It's nearly like a matching agency, and to work with the business as they go along that journey as well. The retention rate for us is really important. If our participants, if 83% of our participants are in jobs after 6 months to a year, something's working right. And that's because the support is delivered to the participant, but also to the business. The employer is a customer as well. And they need support to help make that work.
And you've talked about it's across a range of sectors, so you actually can meet the skills shortage gaps in many different sectors, and it's great to hear that you have that support. It's not just a case of a recruitment company finding you someone and then you're on your own and you've 6 months and work it out between you. At the end of the day, your participant is your customer. You need to look after them, you look after the employer. Lots of businesses will be tuned into this today. If they wanted to talk to you about what they could do because they would like to help but they don't know what to do, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say get in touch and don't be afraid of that conversation. The best conversations with business come when we have that overarching discussion about, tell me about your supply chain. What do you want to do? What are you doing around CSR? Does that link in any way to social value? What are your priorities in relation to this area? And what are you doing around inclusion and diversity? And I think what you tend to find is business that, oh gosh, we need to do this and we need to do this, and that's another thing we need to do. And I think we can shape, particularly with the strategic partnerships that Now Group has with certain businesses, we can shape a solution that that meets the needs of the business, but also puts disabled people first. So a really good example of that would be a partnership we have with Galgorm Collection, you know, a great favourite, I'm assuming of most of the listeners and mine. That business had come to us because they wanted to do good things. The business was going well, they wanted to invest in their local community. They had people needs, so they needed to look at recruitment, and so that's why we've got a hospitality academy that runs into there. And they also wanted to talk about supply chain. They also became a jam card friendly business because they wanted to open up all of the customer service. They wanted to be seen and to actually be a really inclusive, welcoming environment for disabled people and their families. And they saw the business case for that. So it wasn't just about doing good. They understood that it would be a USP for them. But also then they provide, you know, they have our pottery range in their giftware store. They do a bespoke gift every year for the VIP customers that our potters make. We had we carved a unique partnership there that worked for them, and also we have 9 people with disabilities in jobs over the next 2 years with them as well.
And so what will they be doing?
Range of things. You know, they'll probably come through the hospitality academy most, so there may be housekeeping, front of house, catering, wherever they have the needs, they'll come to us as a potential area. You know, we have a few. I think we've got 4 people placed already there, and another 5 to come over the next year or so.
And what difference is it making to the people working there, and also to the culture of the company, and to, you know, how's it going?
Yeah, well, you know, I think in particular they are a really great organisation because they're investing in their people as well. So some of the feedback certainly around the work on the jobs piece and Jam Card is that, you know, their staff are starting to realise that they're people with purpose. And, you know, we partner, another organisation I can think of would be Danske Bank, where we rolled out Jam Card right across all of their branches, and the feedback from their HR team was we didn't realise how many of our staff had disabilities, or how many of our staff loved people with disabilities and appreciated us doing that. And I think it's that whole idea of purpose for businesses now that's interesting as well.
For those of us who don't know what Jam Card is, do you want to explain?
Yeah, I describe all of our brands as a family, and I think Jam Card, what I would call the blue eye boy. Everybody knows about Jam Card, even if they don't know about Now Group, and it has kind of a life of its own. So Jam is a card. Jam meaning just a minute, or standing for just a minute, and it's a card or an app that people with hidden disabilities can use to get just a minute of patience if they're on a bus, or they're paying at a till, or, you know, they're looking for their ticket on a train, or wherever they may need it. And it was designed by our participants in Belfast, just so that they could access the city centre. It wasn't really meant to be more than that, but it has gone viral, and we have about 110,000 Jam Card users now across the UK, Ireland and wider afield.
Oh my goodness. And
the model is that businesses pay to become Jam Card friendly, so they train their staff to understand what a Jam Card is, and have excellent customer service for disabled people, and then people with the Jam Card get it for free. And that has been fantastic. It's right through the transport network across the island, most of the banks, the post offices, the pharmacies, you know, it's right through Lidl, 770 Lidl stores. It has a life of its own, but I think it shows that businesses realise the spending power of disabled people and their families.
And what difference does it make to those people with hidden disabilities? Can you tell us any examples of where this has been a lifesaver?
Yeah, I think there's many cases in that. I think sometimes it's the one thing, even if they don't use it, having it in their pocket or on their app makes people go out and try.
Yes,
and
the confidence.
I think one of the things, maybe certainly with people with high levels of anxiety or, you know, concern about that, they just won't try because they're too afraid of it going wrong.
You can understand that.
Yeah, you really can. And I think of all the limitations that puts on your life if you don't feel you can go into your local city or go on a bus. I explain to people it's a bit like when you go to, you know, you get off the airplane on your holidays and you get onto the public transport and you don't speak the language and you don't know how it works, and you're expected to be able to navigate yourself to the hotel. That's why most of us get a taxi or have something arranged, because that's quite difficult.
And stressful.
And it's very stressful. So if that communication barrier is an issue, it stops people starting. I also would say, particularly on public transport, it can be really good. It stops anxiety turning into behaviours that can be deemed to be problem behaviour. So, you know, there's some examples of people where they've missed their ticket and they can't find it, and the conductors come in and the anxiety gets so high, the behaviours look like they're challenging behaviours, and that can cause problems where people can be removed from the train, or, you know, get into trouble when they shouldn't be. It's about understanding that people just need a minute.
I remember talking to you before about my late father. He had dementia.
That's right.
And there was an incident at an airport in France where you went through security separately. So mum had to go one way, and then it was all at the time, take the belts off, take the shoes off, and he couldn't.
No.
And he didn't speak the language, and he got terribly distressed. And then the police came in.
That's exactly
and carted
what
him
happened.
off. And my mum couldn't speak the language, and and if they
think of that
had
card.
something that could have taken all of that away, or just allowed her to be able to say, I need to be with him.
And I think in that sense, that's a very, I'm just really sad that happened to your family. It's just not on. I think people need to understand that disabled customers are their customers, and they need to have a level of care, but it's really difficult if you don't look like you have a disability. And customer care people are trying to work out what's happening, so I think that card helps with that. But what's happened on the business side is that card has been so successful. Businesses have come to us wanting to become Jam Card friendly, and then we start that conversation about what else we can do, because it's only really the start of a journey. With the right businesses, you know, you can be Jam Card friendly, that makes you inclusive for your customers, but what about your workforce? Are you inclusive on that side? What else could you be doing with your supply chain that adds value? And, you know, in this world where social value is so important, certainly in tendering and contracting, the conversation is becoming a really exciting one for us.
And how do businesses get in touch if they want to know more about Jam, or want to know about, you know, thinking outside the box, and maybe recruiting somebody with a disability?
Well, we have a range of social media channels for that, but I would say the best place to start is a website. So that's nowgrip.org. It links you to all of our social enterprises, and I think, you know, that conversation starts. People don't have to have a very clear idea what they want to do. They just need to say, I'm interested in a further conversation.
I love talking to you, Maeve, because I love the passion you have for what you do. Do you love your job?
Oh, I would question whether there's a better job about it. I think, you know, with being there 21 years, sometimes you think, oh my goodness, I could get stuck in a rut here. You know, what's the next big opportunity? And I think there's very little opportunity out there like this. It's growing every year. It's lots of potential for expansion. Some of the most exciting work at the minute is about our expansion into the Republic of Ireland. But also, I think that balance between being entrepreneurial and wanting to do things, you know, being focused on social justice, that link together is priceless for me. And even on the most difficult days, and not every day is a good day, I think I definitely have the best job going.
And we've heard already about, you know, the thousands of people who are benefiting from Now Group, but what about the staff and the team members? Tell us about the makeup of those and numbers.
Yeah, so we've just under 100 staff now. That will expand quite a lot with 2 new projects we have coming on the line in this year. But I think, you know, when we talk about customers, we have 3 customers. There's our participants, there's our customers that we sell to, and our businesses we partner with, and then there's our staff. And I have been on a journey around this where I am 100% sure that having the right people in your organisation and investing in them drives your mission and your values. And I think we are really sure that we're recruiting now. We recruit for people with values aligned to ourselves, and we recruit for grit. And I think that idea of understanding that even if you're working in a charity stroke social enterprise, you also need to be able to roll up your sleeves and get involved and do what's asked of you. And I think that's what makes Now Group staff different. They're the ones delivering, you know.
And how many do you recruit? People with disabilities, how many would you have?
We would normally have between 1 in 6 of all our staff across Now Group would have disabilities, and that would be right across the organisation, and we would be really trying to make sure we're as diverse as possible. And
can I ask you, do you like me asking you that question?
No, I don't mind.
You know, is that something that you feel you have to talk about just to be representative, to show organisations, but yet actually is it just a case of getting the best person for the job, or is it still a requirement?
No, I think we would focus on it quite a bit. Okay. Even an organisation like ours needs to keep an eye on that, I think. And, you know, we would be wanting to try to stretch every role and see how we can develop that. But also, it gives us a really good insight into some of the challenges that come with a diverse workforce.
Of course.
And
you
I
can't
think
tell others how to do it if you're not doing it yourself.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think we have adapted in many ways, but also I would say, looking back, some of the projects that we've been known for leading on, certainly around jam cards, some of the co-design work, some kind of that, bringing disabled people with us, wouldn't happen unless we had a diverse workforce. We didn't do it for that reason, but having a diverse workforce makes you more innovative.
Yeah, definitely. How difficult was, I don't want to keep talking about the pandemic, but how difficult was COVID and how difficult was remote working? And do you feel that people with disabilities struggled more with, well, hold on, I can't go to my work.
Yeah.
How do I do my work at home?
Yeah, I would say, as an organisation, the pandemic was significant as it was for most organisations, but also we had a catering business that was going really doing really well on a massive growth thing, and then it just dropped. So we had that piece to deal with. We had our own team working remotely. So that's what I say about the value of having great people. They stepped up and put all of their services online. And we had quite a bit of work to look, because we also, along with the jobs piece, support a lot of vulnerable families through our community services, just trying to keep people safe in their own homes, dealing with a lot of the issues that, people have in families, and how that has to work was a problem. And then I think getting people to understand that the process had changed, what they were used to doing wasn't happening anymore, was particularly difficult for some of our participants who like routine and like things to happen in a certain way. And then, Sarah, I think coming out of the pandemic was nearly as bad, because they kind of got used to that routine, and now they're having to start to change in that. But I was in our headquarters in Belfast last week, and all our participants were in, and we had a graduation a few weeks ago in City Hall, and seeing it's coming round again, but we have had to put significant intervention in just to try to make sure that people have the support they need to be well, and supported through this time, because...
So additional support.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Much needed.
For our staff.
And how
as
have you managed as a CEO, looking after everybody?
Yeah.
Huge responsibility.
Yeah, I think looking back, it is quite shocking. There's a couple of things that were really good. I have a very, very good executive team, and we just went into huddle and got this work sorted out. And I think the team really came together, and we were able to keep going, which was great. I think what we're dealing with now probably is it's the tail end of a bit of burnout, where people just have worked so hard for so long, and into a new year where we're growing again. So a lot of the work we're doing at the minute is making sure that we're celebrating that we got that far and we did a really good job, and then starting to look at growth.
And do you feel a sense of that yourself?
Yeah, I think there's so many opportunities at the minute. Everything seems to be all starting up at the same time, and my challenge is, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who wants to develop, I see all of this potential, but the other balance in my personality is saying, make sure everything's done right. So that challenge all the time, make sure it's embedded, make sure it's quality, people really are getting a good service, and then seeing all the opportunities. That's a rub that is always in my head.
And we've kind of looked over the last while, they've dubbed this era now the Great Resignation, because people go, do you know what? I don't get paid enough for this. I need to step back. And if we could move into that notion of the Great Recognition and give people the time that they need. I mean, look at even the health service at the minute. People need to stop, and they need to rest.
They do need to rest. I have never seen, actually I was just speaking about that a few weeks ago, I've never seen so many people in the health service who are so unwell. So we have a lot of work to do to build teams, and I think the remoteness has stopped that as well. So that kind of support you get from your peers wasn't there, and we're starting to introduce that back. But also people have been really unwell, and we had a number of resignations. Once you started unlocking, we had a number of people who decided, they had other career moves that they wanted to do, and I think the bit is to say that's brilliant for them. But also we have a lot of people who've come to us because they've realised that there's no value in their role.
Right, so it's worked. You're getting some people who've left other things.
They're saying, look, I was working for the big corporate, it was a bit of a grind. Then I started to question, why am I doing this? What am I getting back? Where is my value? And that either comes with businesses talking to us about how they partner with us, or people coming and saying, can I get a job with you? Gosh. And I think that's an interesting piece for us as well, about how we take advantage of that.
So what advice would you give to someone looking to get into this area of work, either by partnering through their existing business or by coming and doing something completely different and having a job with that purpose? It's wonderful.
Yeah, well, I think, think about the things that make you happy. That, there's a sector here where you can do a job and you have the added value. Sometimes what happens is people don't understand it as an option because they've been on a career path that's around industry where it's this next step in the ladder and then it moves to this next step. And your recognition is around steps on that ladder rather than on the impact you're making. So if that's something that you're wanting to look at whether you can do that within your own job. And lots of people recently are starting to move that model of CSR and say, if we partner with an organisation like Now Group, could I use my skills, for instance, as a programmer? Is there something that Now Group needs that I'm really, really good at that I can give you a bit of time? Rather than come in, my pet hate, asking a computer programmer to paint her walls. I'm like, no, I'll get a painter to paint my walls. But you know what we don't have? Anybody who knows anything about programming. Mm-hmm. So it's that idea of volunteering through your work in a way
with your skills.
With your skills. And something you
so
find really
you don't need
easy.
to leave your job completely,
no,
but you can do something
to.
and be released by your employer for what?
Yeah.
1 day a week,
well,
couple of days a month?
Well, it depends on the employer. Some people are doing, hours per month. They might do like 6 hours a month or something like that. Most bigger organisations have that, and even any organisations that are looking at social value have it. But the interesting piece about that is people say, but this isn't really volunteering. Like, I do this as a day job. And I say, you don't understand how valuable it is. So something you take for granted is a massive added value in an organisation that doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. And then in the other part of that, lots of people are starting to look online at the jobs that are available, see if there's a match. Most of the private sector business certainly is transferable now. I think one of the things is salaries can be slightly less in the private sector, but make your decision about, are you value driven or are you not? But our sector needs a diverse range of people from all different industry.
What's the biggest challenge you faced as a CEO?
I think that piece I spoke about earlier around wanting to grow but wanting to do it right. So I have never been one for, we're the biggest, we're the best. I just think if you have to say that out loud, you have to question why you're doing it. I think the thing for us is our mission is to support as many people as possible with disabilities into jobs with a future. So I want to do more of that. We want to support 6,000 people over the next 3 years. We want to create 600 jobs for them. But I want to do it right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest challenge, growing, but making sure you're doing the best you could possibly do. And as you grow, then making sure that your team live those values as well. So the control freak in me wants to make sure everything's exactly right. But I started to realise I can't control that. I just need to invest in the right people, in the right seats, make sure they're sure of our values and let them get on with it.
And do you struggle with that recruitment? Because obviously there's a big safeguarding piece here as well.
Yeah. In certain areas and at certain times. So I would say over the last 12 months, yes. Definitely. There was just that mad rush for recruitment where everybody was all over the place and it was quite difficult. And that's coming round again. We have a number of roles out at the moment, some in the Republic of Ireland and most of them here. And the interest is picking up again. So I always think things go round in cycles. If you don't do it right the first time, you might have to go round again.
You've talked a lot there about, how people, what their values are, what their goals are, where they're aligned to, what does success look like? And the rewards are huge, I would imagine. I attended one of the graduation ceremonies a couple of years ago and I was blown away. And it's not just because of the faces of the participants and their joy at their achievements, but it's that ripple effect through the families. Yeah. I mean, it's not just one person. Yeah. You change lives of everybody in that family.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we tell our staff as well when we're talking about the value piece. But I would challenge anybody not to have somebody that they love in their family. Once you start these conversations, you realise there's very few conversations I have where people don't say, oh my goodness, my son has autism, or did you know my father has dementia? Those conversations you start to realise that everybody is bought into, they just don't know how to help. And then all of a sudden you have a significant audience of supporters. And that's the thing I would say to business. 1 in 10 people have a disability in Northern Ireland, and then all of their families. And I think if you think of the
1 in 10.
1 in 10, if you think of the range of disabilities, and if you and I think that number is actually on the low side. We have the highest population of economically inactive people anywhere in the UK. So when people talk about unemployment rates being really low, they have to understand that there's a significant population of people who are not in that data,
Gosh.
who are economically inactive, and a number of those, now some are carers and some have other jobs, but most of those people have disabilities. And I think what we're starting to realise is those markets don't know each other.
Yeah.
And we're part of that conversation around it.
And it is that thing, if you have a child with a disability, I'm thinking of a very good friend of mine, and when she became a mum, people said to her, well, you'll have to stop work now. No, I love my job. I have to earn money and keep a roof over their heads otherwise. But there's so many who are forced out of the workforce. So then when you get to 18, maybe you've got the special school up until that time. And then you think, what is going to happen
That's exactly
to my vulnerable
And I think
child?
that happens a bit earlier. There's periods in parents' life where they really get concerned, and it tends to happen, particularly if people are in special schools where they exit at 18 or 19. About 16, they start worrying. They start really worrying about what's going to happen. And the fight before has been around education and getting the right support in the classroom and making sure the person... then it becomes, oh my goodness, what happens next? And I think we provide a lot of that assurance to people to say, there are options there. There is Now Group, and there are other organisations who are doing fantastic work supporting individuals. And then the other area of that, as the individuals get older, they start to think about, can they live on their own? Could they actually get a job? What will happen? And I think we're part of that conversation with parents as well.
And so important that the wider society is having that conversation too. It's not just something that happens to somebody else.
No, and they have to be seen. Sorry, that's the thing. It's not a charitable thing for people with disabilities to be included. It's businesses need to be reflective of their customer base.
Completely. How important are volunteers to what you do?
Well, right across the organisation, they're very important. I talked about the volunteering that businesses do, so releasing their staff. Like a really good example of that is the ongoing partnership we have with Deloitte, where they have done significant projects with us through their 5 Million Futures programme over the last 5 years, where they've given pro bono support with areas of expertise into our organisation to help. We could never have afforded that kind of work around helping us build our strategy, leadership development, helping with building business plans. It never would have happened. So that has helped with that. But also then we have two of the best volunteers I can think of are a husband and wife team who volunteer in their garden in Crawfordsburn. And right through the pandemic, every single week, they come, they put in the herbs and I just saw that they have a crop of spring onions coming out there in our cafe at the minute. They're doing something with their participants there that ends up on the plate in Love Cafe, and it's that ongoing support. So they have a skill around gardening. That garden would have been in complete disarray by now if they hadn't been there. So Sid keeps that right, and I think that is the value of volunteering, when you get a right match with somebody who wants to help and they've got a job you need doing.
And so lovely for that couple to be able to do that together as well.
Brilliant.
So
and
nice.
it must be maybe 4 or 5 years now. So from corporates to individuals, I think giving your time.
Yeah. And understanding your worth and understanding your skills, and that everything is actually can be put to good use somewhere.
Yeah, and that feeling that it should be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
So, for people to volunteer and it to be successful, they give their time, but they have to get something back out of it. And I think that's the bit that's worked very well for us.
So you did hint at what's next for Now Group, exciting plans in the Republic.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really exciting plans. We're just putting the final... The final detail into a new loaf site in Dublin, which will be fantastic. We've been talking about this for quite a while, Sarah, to be honest, and I think COVID hit and it's been on the back burner. So I said to the team, it feels like I've been teeing them up for 2 years, but nothing's happening. All of a sudden I pressed the button on it. But Diane, our head of business development, her team have secured a contract in Dublin in the Kilmainham area for a project that's just about hopefully going to go live at the beginning of July, which is great. great. And that will then start us developing our services down there. We tend to start with a loaf site and then wrap our services around it. So we'll have our cafe and pottery operating, pottery products being sold there. Then we'll start looking at our employment services as well. And an interesting part of that piece, that first piece, will be starting to look at supporting people with learning difficulty and autism coming out of the criminal justice system and supporting them into jobs. That's a whole new area of work for us in the south as well, which is pretty exciting.
I think that's great. That's a whole other conversation, but I know that there's a lot of work being done in that area, particularly by business in the community at the minute.
Absolutely.
Ban the box and thinking differently about who can you employ, who can you bring in. Do you get any time off?
People say to me, oh, Maeve, you must be so busy. And I would say, no busier than anybody else. Because if you've got a really, really good team, honestly, they do most of the work. So, yes, I get some time off. I had time off until we bought a new house that needs a significant amount of renovation. So there's quite a big project going on with my husband and I on that. And I am very involved in the local GAA team, so I coach, I assisted in the coaches in under 12 camogie. So yeah, plenty going on, Sarah.
You sure do, honestly, unbelievable. Maeve, it's been a joy to have you in the studio today. I can't let you leave without asking you our vital question at the end of every podcast, which is, the purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs to grow their business by offering insight into the success of businesses such as Now Group. So what advice would you give, Maeve, to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether it's a risk worth taking?
Well, I would say, first of all, write it down, because I think when you're starting to shape that up for people and you need to talk to them, you need to be able to show them what you're talking about. And I think the other piece, I would say, the lesson I've learned in life is don't wait to be asked. Because if you wait to be asked, it'll never be done. If your gut tells you it's the right thing, write it down, shape it up and get going. Start talking to people about it. Ask people you trust, test it out with them, and then get on and get it done.
Great advice, Maeve. A pleasure as always. Thank you so much for joining me in the podcast studio today. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Join me next time when I'll be joined by Karen Yates from Taylor Yates. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team, using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.